Dr. William Lee, if someone has just clicked on this conversation and they're asking themselves, they're wondering what they're going to get out of spending this time with us for the next couple of hours, what would you say directly to them that they will learn, gain, and how will their life improve?
I would say that you're going to hear about food in a brand new way that you didn't realize, that a decision that you can make after this, listening to this or watching this, that you can put into action to your life immediately could actually help you for the rest of your life. It could stave off disease, help you feel stronger, even help you with longevity. So it's no single moves that you can make, but it's the beginning of taking steps that can actually allow you to live the rest of a long, enjoyable life.
And what are the key diseases that people are and should be most concerned about today based on their correlation to the food that we eat?
Yeah, if you look at the biggest health crises in the world today in developed countries, you're really talking about cardiovascular disease being the number one killer, diabetes, and all the consequences, the devastating consequences that come out. Listen, your blood sugar is not being very well regulated. That's the definition over time of diabetes, but the knock-on effect of having high uncontrolled sugars is really underlying metabolic chaos. There's a whole litany of terrible conditions that happens every downstream from that, from eye disease to wounds that don't heal, et cetera, et cetera. Cancer is another one. Dementia is a bigger and bigger problem as our population ages. And a lot of people don't recognize this, but the saying that inflammation is a root cause of chronic disease, scientifically correct. But there are many, many inflammatory diseases that are out there that don't get enough airplay, that really take away the quality of your life as you get older. And so I think all of these things, it's not just about mortality, it's about morbidity. It's not just about living long, it's about living well and feeling good along the way.
And where do you think we are as a society, especially as Westerners, as it relates to our relationship with health and food? Because when I look at some of the stats around life expectancy, there's been a bit of a stagnation in, I think it was 2020-ish time. But then also when you look at a lot of these chronic diseases, whether it's diabetes, whether it's cancer, these things seem to be on the rise. So as a nation, it feels like we've got more information than ever before. But when you look at the objective numbers, for some reason, we're not going in the right direction. What's your 30,000-foot view on it?
30,000 foot, there's more and more people in the world. So once you get huge numbers, the diseases that affect most people are going to magnify. So just as a matter of math, we're going to see more of these chronic diseases. But we're also going to be seeing two things that are happening that actually oppose each other. One thing is that the lifestyle and dietary harms that have occurred over 20, 30, 50 years, from the industrialization of food, from the industrialization of healthcare, from degradation of the environment, those are all things that take time to manifest. And so to some extent, we are presently seeing the fallout of some of the not so good moves that we made in the 1950s and 60s and 70s and so on and so forth. So decades later, we're beginning to see the consequences, the devastation of things that happened decades ago. That's one side of increasing the incidence and prevalence of health conditions, bad health conditions. There's another side that is countervailing. And the other side, which is the side that's the team I play on, is it really exciting. Because one thing that's different is that we now have tremendous scientific power to get in there and probe diseases and also indeed probe health, which is something we're not doing often enough. And in so doing, we're actually able to find solutions to the problems that counter some of those harms. So we're beginning to discover now, how do we actually prevent diabetes? How do we prevent cardiovascular disease? Can we reverse heart disease? And even conditions that seemed like no-win situations. And I like to talk about this, is that in my career, I never thought as a physician I would actually see the cure to cancer, the end of cancer. But actually, I tell you, I have now seen where the end of cancer is coming from. I've seen how the war is going to finish because I've had well over a dozen patients, and there are hundreds of people like this that are starting to form that can go from stage 4 cancer, that's game over cancer, to stage 0. We can do this. And not for everybody yet, but we're beginning to see where the light at the end of the tunnel is, and it involves your immune system. And some of the remarkable scientific breakthroughs are teaching us that our body heals itself against diseases as serious as cancer in ways that the pharmaceutical industry can't by itself do. But it really relies on the body. So when you talk about food as medicine or medicine as medicine, none of them are as powerful as what the body is hardwired to do by itself.
When I think about something like cancer, it's slightly terrifying because it feels like a game of roulette. It feels like the people that get cancer, it's completely random, and that our outcomes are also a game of roulette. And this is as someone that knows very little about cancer. I hear someone that I thought was very, very healthy get cancer, and then their outcomes, whether they beat it or not, also seem to be largely down to chance sometimes. That's how it seems. What do you think of that view?
Yeah, I'm going to give you a brand new view of thinking about cancer. And that is that we are all forming cancer in our bodies all the time, from the time we were kids. You don't have clinical cancer, you haven't gone to the doctor to get a diagnosis, still start forming cancers. And let me tell you why. Cancers are like pimples in our body, all right? And this is shocking to some people to hear, but the human body is made up of about 40 trillion cells. That's more cells in our body than stars in a clear sky. All right. And these cells have to divide to be able to reproduce themselves, copy and paste. Every cell has its own genetic material called DNA. It's our instructions for how our cells are work. So you got to copy and paste your DNA. All right. Now, copying and pasting is a tricky thing to do really well. So if I gave you a sentence to write, Stephen, and I said, copy it 10 times on a Word document, you'll do it perfectly. If I told you to copy it 1,000 times, you're going to make a few mistakes. Good thing that we have spell check to fix it, to catch it and fix it. But if I ask you to copy a single sentence 40 trillion times, you're going to make so many mistakes that your spell check isn't even going to be able to catch all of it. Okay. And that's what's happening in our body every single day as we are replicating ourselves. We're going to make mistakes. And whenever there's a mistake that's being made that isn't caught and fixed, that's a mutation. And so we have mutations that are forming in our body just as an outcome of being alive and doing our thing. And we're not sick from those mutations. But every mutation is the beginning of a microscopic cancer. Take a guess of how many mistakes in DNA of copying and pasting your own body are made every 24 hours. Take a guess. This has been calculated randomly.
There's so many cells in my body, so it's going to be a big number, 1 million?
Okay. Every day, every 24 hours, there are 10,000 mistakes that are made in your body that your body doesn't catch, that propagate in the document of our body as it goes on. 10,000. Each of those is a microscopic cancer. A microscopic cancer is just that. It's microscopic. It's too small to be seen with the naked eye, but it's abnormal. And that thing could turn into a big tumor that could eventually kill you. So why don't we die from cancer all the time? Now, this is actually something that I see as a physician. I have a patient diagnosed with cancer. They always ask me, Dr. Lee, why me? Why did I get breast cancer, colon cancer, pancreatic cancer, brain tumor? A very, very natural question, and I do my best to try to provide an empathic answer to that question. But as a researcher, I have a more interesting question. Given the number of mutations that occur in our body every single day, why don't we get cancer more often? Why don't we all get cancer as kids? Cancer can happen in children, but not as often as we have mutations. And it turns out this was the great unlock for me in terms of health. The reason that we don't become more sick from all kinds of diseases, including cancer, is because our body is hardwired with its own health defense systems. So that we've got these swashbuckling defenses that are firing on all cylinders all day long, from the moment we're born until our very last breath. These systems that are inside our body defend our health, including the microscopic cancers, spots them, takes them out, kind of like a police cruiser patrolling a quiet neighborhood, sees a drug dealer on the corner, pops them in the back of the police vehicle and takes them away, cleaning up the neighborhood. That's how our body naturally cleans up these microscopic cancers. And so when you talk about cancer as a scary disease, you're thinking about the person whose body has failed to detect and eliminate the microscopic cancers, and it's become large enough to actually become a threat. Now, here's a question for you. So we tell women to actually do a self breast exam when they're taking a shower, look for lumps or bumps. And, if you find one, certainly go to your doctor immediately for an exam. The smallest cancer that you could feel with a trained person can feel with their hands in the breast is 1 centimeter in diameter. A 1 centimeter breast cancer already has 1 billion cancer cells that have already multiplied. That microscopic cancer multiplied 1 billion times. That's the smallest one you can feel. Now, immune system's not taking them out, all right? So you need a better immune system if you want a shot at this, and not just chemo or hormonal therapy. And that's where some of these incredible advances are taking place. But there's another one. In order to feed 1 billion cancer cells, you need blood vessels to feed them. So the cancers, as they get bigger, they hijack our own circulation to feed themselves. Okay. It's kind of like terrorists kicking in the cockpit door to take over the controls of the plane. They want to actually get your blood vessels to feed themselves. Now, normally the body knows how to control those blood vessels. It's called angiogenesis, blood vessels, genesis, how the body grows and controls them. That's my area of research. So naturally, our body knows how to prevent blood vessels from feeding cancers, and yet knows how to direct blood vessels to feed healthy tissues. So guess what? A 1 centimeter tumor with 1 billion cancer cells is fed by 100 million blood vessels coursing into the tumor to feed them. And we've studied this in the laboratory. The moment that a single blood vessel touches a tumor, tiny microscopic tumor, it will grow 16,000 times in size in just 2 weeks.
Wow. All
right. So I've told you some scary statistics, but now let me kind of give you where the breakthroughs are coming through, right? So with this kind of knowledge, what can we do with cancers? Not just breast cancers, but in general. Number one, we know that if you boost your immune system with foods, with exercise, diet, lifestyle, you're going to actually make your immune defenses a lot stronger to patrol your body to wipe out those microscopic cancers. That's why healthy diet and lifestyle lowers the risk of cancer. That's why eating the right foods that boost your immunity can substantially lower your risk of cancer as well. We also know that you can eat foods that support, prompt up, fortify your body's natural ability to control blood vessels. Keep those blood vessels where they're supposed to be and get rid of those blood vessels where you don't want them to be, which is kicking in the cockpit to take over your circulation to feed cancers. So if you eat foods that are anti-angiogenic foods, like on Staple, you've got coffee and tea. Both of those contain natural substances that cut off the blood supply and starve cancers. That's a good thing. So that's why we know what we do with our diet can actually help to lower the risk of cancer as well.
I'm assuming the opposite also applies. I could eat foods, I can drink things that cause my body to malfunction, i.e. makes the blood vessels unregulated, and starts to feed the cancer, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about that. So,
okay.
So I told you the body's hardwired with these defenses, shields up, right? That's what we want to do. Because shields are already normally up, you want to raise them higher. But what about, and this is a brilliant question you're asking, a very probing question. What are the things that take your shields down, right? What are the things that turn off the smoke alarm in your house, that unlock the doors?
Can I take a guess? Is it this?
Okay. Now, I know the answer that you're setting this conversation up for, which is a burger with meat. Is that actually disease causing? And I would tell you that, Yes and no. A burger is something that many people enjoy eating, and I would say eating meat, eating burgers, even eating ultra processed foods once in a while is not going to harm you if your health defenses are naturally strong. But if you make it a habit, a regular habit of eating this at the expense of eating healthier foods, more plant-based foods, less processed foods, okay, you are actually going to tip your odds where the diseases are more likely to get you. What that means is that overeating fast foods like burgers will actually contribute to taking your health defenses down, shields down.
So what are those things then that bring the shields down? You were saying...
Okay, excess sodium, too much salt, which can be present in a lot of restaurant foods. People eat out a lot, go to restaurants all the time. You ever go to the back of a kitchen of a restaurant to see how they're seasoning their food? Patrons love salty food. It makes food taste really great. There's our brains respond very well to salty food. That high sodium levels actually speeds up, accelerates our cellular aging. So we actually age faster, but it also is a huge wear and tear on our health defenses, specifically our circulation. Our blood vessels, our angiogenesis system is taken down by excess salt.
Okay, I've got a question here. Obviously, there's a big movement at the moment around hydration and electrolytes. And these electrolytes have magnesium, potassium, they have sodium in them.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are now taking electrolytes to hydrate themselves. Is there a risk here? So
the great news is that the healthy body has got its own titration system for electrolytes. If you drink a electrolyte fortified beverage, your body's going to take everything it needs and it's going to pee out the rest. You're going to eliminate through your urine. All right. However, sodium is one of those electrolytes is present. Like you're not drinking electrolyte fluid all day long, but sodium, you're eating it in almost every food that you actually have, except perhaps dessert, but maybe even then. And so this is one of the things that we realize is sodium is a high risk for hypertension, high blood pressure, inflammation of the lining of your circulation, and that sets up for a lot of badness downstream when it comes to your health, and it takes down your circulation health defenses that we talked about. High blood sugar can also do the same thing. So if you're eating an excess of added sugar, we all have heard by now, glucose spikes and glucose crashes. I don't actually use those words, by the way. I don't like to actually cast our body's metabolism in terms of spikes and crashes. I think those are fear words. They get attention. They do make you pay attention to it. But in fact, really, the healthy body sort of has, smooth ups and smooth downs. They're gentle slopes up and down of our blood sugar, and that's completely fine. All right? And it should be like that. However, if you have an uphill climb of your blood glucose and it continues to stay up, that can actually happen if you're eating too much added sugar. Okay, added sugar, ultra processed foods. What happens is that your blood sugars, your intake of the sugar, glucose, rises up, and now your body has your metabolism to chase that blood sugar down, and it's got to work harder and make more insulin, and eventually you just wear out that system, and then you have a high blood glucose and an insensitive metabolism, and that's the beginning of sort of the dominoes starting to fall apart in your body. And so sugar, high blood sugar, added sugar is a problem. You get it from fruit, not a problem, okay? No one's going to be eating a crazy amount of fruit. This is why extremes aren't good. Diversity, switch it out. Keep it interesting for yourself. This is what our human nature wants anyway. It's how we're hardwired. You'll actually be fine. So salt, sugar, those are two offenders, okay? Alcohol is another one that actually can take down your health defenses over time. People say, well, what about red wine? Isn't red wine healthy? What I would say is that actually the fermented products or the bioactives that come out of red grapes, from the skin of red grapes that's found in red wine, there can be some healthful properties of the resveratrol and other polyphenols that come out of that are in wine, but it's never the alcohol. Yeah. It's not the alcohol in the beer, the wine, the whiskey. Nope. None of that is the alcohol is a universal toxin. Toxic to your brain, toxic to your liver, toxic to your heart. Can't get away from that. Your body will recover. shields up. Little, it can take a ding. It's like like a drink is sort of like a driving behind a truck, and it flings a little pebble right into your windshield. You might get a little spider in the windshield. Okay, don't worry, it'll repair itself. You'll fix yourself. You'll bounce back. It's not going to break your windshield. But if you keep on drinking, you're actually going to smash your windshield. And that's why alcoholism is so devastating to the health. But, a small amount of alcohol. So alcohol itself is a toxin.
Do you drink?
I rarely drink. And when I drink, it's in moderation.
Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about stress as well. Does that bring down the...
So besides the foods you eat, other things that can compromise your health defenses. And by the way, there are 5 health defenses. We talked about blood vessels.